I recommend to everybody who has the ability to get off the devices, it's like a drug. And if you spend too much time, you will find that the drug no longer works. Looks like we're live, guy.
Hey, we're back.
How we doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you, man?
Oh, it's good. How was your weekend?
Namaste. It was
Last weekend
was. I don't even remember what I did last weekend. It was pretty good. I'm still alive.
Well, we skipped our golf on Sunday. We haven't had any golf all week. There's been a golf drought or a golf deluge, I guess, because the golf course is flooded.
Golf course is flooded, yeah, and it's going to be worse next week, I would suspect. I bet we're closed for 2 weeks.
Probably likely.
Yeah.
And
I follow this guy on Instagram called Mike the Weather Guy. Are you an Instagram guy?
No.
Mike the Weather Guy, and he predicted Hurricane Ian way before anybody did. So
he's a prophet.
He's not he could be a prophet. And his spaghetti tracks have this one on Tuesday or Wednesday coming right at us. Right at us.
Yeah, but it's not a hurricane. It's just going to be more like a...
he says it's going to be a Cat 1 or 2.
Okay, well...
So, I don't know.
I need to relook at that, because I know last time when Ian hit, I assumed it was going to go up to St. Pete, watching the cone. And I got up in the morning the day before, and it was just beep, beep, beep. Warning, evacuate Lee County. Beep, beep, beep. So finally I go to work and I said to my wife, maybe we should check this thing. And then I look and it's like, boom, it's like it's taking a 90-degree turn and it's going right at us.
Just like Charlie did.
Yeah. So anyway, we ran across to the East Coast. And
oh, you did?
Yeah. And so we got out of Dodge. And I'm not going to sit here and try to weather a hurricane if I can avoid it. I'm going to evacuate.
You just got to know where. I mean, some of them are so big they cover the whole state. So if everybody's evacuating, you're going to go to an area where you may not get a hotel or whatever. So
well, this is true, and
I mean,
or I've got friends or family. I mean, I've got lots of people that I know that I could potentially, hook up with or stay with if in case of an emergency.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. My biggest fear is the water. And, I mean, if you didn't flood or I didn't flood here in Whiskey Creek during Ian at a 15-foot storm surge, 150-mile-an-hour winds, I'm comfortable with staying right in my place.
Well, but the thing is that the way that storm hit, it just, if you had been a little bit further depending on where that storm moved left or right, you could have very well have been underwater. Many of the people down south, and they had been through hurricanes and never had it. And then my massage therapist, she literally had her house, the water rising up in her house. She had to jump out her window and she had to swim for her life. Like she had to literally swim for her life. I had another friend, Dani Giametti, for those of you who may know her. She was a member at the club for a while. And she tells the story that, she was watching the water comes up and she's got the river in the back of her house. And she's just watching the river come up and come up and come up and come up. And it's coming up to her door. And basically, she assumed she was done. So she said she ate a bunch of gummies and she was drinking. And she basically, was with her dog. And she that's all she remembered. She passed out basically.
Wow.
And she woke up in the morning and the water had come up to her bed, but it had never, drowned. It never obviously didn't hurt her. And then by the time she got up, the water had already kind of receded a little bit. So, and then what happened was she ended up checking her phone. And during the nighttime, she had been taking pictures of what was happening, and she was like talking, and she's saying, this is the end, my tour dog, and it's like, it's the end of it, we're done. This is the end of the world.
Wow.
I was asking, I'm like, wow, what did that's my spiritual stuff. I'm like, man, what did that feel like inside of you? Like that must have really been
conclusion of death.
Right.
Wow.
But a lot of times when we have those massive internal spiritual disruptions, we hate it and we don't want to explore it because it's so uncomfortable. So as soon as the experience is over, we just create our narrative and we create a little story to put it into because we don't want to return to this. We just want to put it in a little box and just put it over there in the corner. Spiritual quest is when this stuff goes on inside of you, you figure out what it feels like and you explore it and you examine it so that you're no longer a victim to this inner spiritual stuff. Every time you're in a particular situation that you don't like, you want to stop the world from being. I don't want that thought to be in my space. I don't want that group of people to be in my space. I don't like those types of movies to be in my space. Well, if you think about this, as we're learning about life and as we're experiencing and as we're expanding, we meet life with curiosity. This is what kids do. They meet life with curiosity. They run right up, and the little kid just wants to grab a bee. He wants to take the bee right off the flower, right? Because he doesn't realize that the bee can sting him. But that's the openness. And if he grabs the bee, he's going to get stung, and he's going to learn a lesson from that, right? Well, if we start getting jaded in our life and we start saying, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. I don't want anything that makes me feel uncomfortable. Well, the problem of feeling uncomfortable is not that external thing. That uncomfortableness is inside of me. I'm uncomfortable. Well, if I don't figure out how to fix my uncomfortableness, if my chance of fixing my uncomfortableness means I push you away and I push you away and I push you away, the whole world is coming in on you. And slowly but surely you try to put yourself in the cage, and you try to put yourself in the corner of the cage to protect yourself from the evil world that's coming at you. The evil world that's coming at you is not the problem. What's the problem?
I'm waiting to hear.
It's what's going on in your belly. That's what the problem is, down here in your belly. It's a spiritual thing. It's not the world around you. The world around you is the world around you. And that inner spiritual feelings to that's the spiritual quest stuff that I talk about. And the fact that we're reaching a point right now where we can no longer run away from these negative feelings, because you know what? My spouse is in the total opposite point of view than me. So it's like it's a constant battle. I'm not saying my spouse, but I mean, there's plenty of battles that me and my spouse go through. Not like we're perfect by any way. But in other words, there are some people who literally are, living in the same household who have absolute polarizing political points of view, and they think by blocking away those feelings, like, is that healthy for a relationship? I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor or anything. I'm just saying, like, for me, it's like, how can I be in a relationship with somebody who I can't even speak to? I can't be honest with for fear of hurting them. And when that's the case, yes, I can accommodate a person who's sensitive and be nice and try not to interact with them in a way that's going to make them uncomfortable. But they're frail. Right? They're frail. They're like a piece of fine china. It's really nice, but you can't. You got to just put it on the counter and treat it with that type of fragility, as opposed to being a Tupperware container. You know what I mean? I'm going to grab my Tupperware, I can bang it around. If I drop it, I pick it back up. And that's the type of relationship I want to have with the world around me. Instead of being afraid of the world coming around you, you step up to the world. What's next?
So would you say that, and again, not your spouse relationship, but that conflict between something as simple as a man and a woman is a three-dimensional concept versus your 5D, the 5D concept we talked about? And if so, how would a 5D mindset interact in that same internal, in-house man and woman? It doesn't have to be man and woman, just two people conflict. How would a 5D handle that? We're not going to change each other's perceptions, beliefs. We've concluded a belief is not necessarily a 5D mindset, but how can the world, starting with something as simple as a man and a wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, male friend and male friend, unidentified human and an identified, whatever you identify as, how can the 5D world, how would they interact? And how, in a big global change of the world, how would the world change?
Well, sorry, the wrong camera.
It's all right.
Like, I have no idea.
Yes, you do.
Well, I have my ideas, which I certainly
share your idea with.
I'll share my idea, but it's not like I know something that makes me unique.
Well,
everything that I know, I'm only observing. I'm watching what I'm observing. I'm open to what I'm observing, and I'm not stopping anything that comes to me. So if a person comes to me and believes that the Earth is flat, right, and that we never went to the moon, I don't say, Get away from me. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. How did you come to that? What makes you think that? And then I ask them the questions based on what I know, because I was raised to believe that it's differently. I was taught it differently in school. So, but my willingness to hear that, and my willingness to open my mind, and my willingness to listen, right? I have a deeper appreciation for this person and their point of view. And all of a sudden that expands a little bit more. My perception, I see a little bit more. And if I go down this path, I don't really like it. In fact, in my book, Spiritual Quest, promote it while I can.
Promote it.
Before I run out of copies. But the thing is, the work that we really need to do to bring ourselves this inner peace is to feel what's negative. So you become so focused on your internal space that you start to realize, I'm driving down the street and a guy cuts me off. Well, the person cuts you off, and you immediately, oh, what are you doing? What are you, an idiot? Well, you didn't see that a squirrel ran in front of the guy. So, he slammed his brake seemingly out of nowhere, right? But this rage comes up inside of you. Those inner spiritual feelings are a problem inside of us. It's not a problem with the world outside of us. In some cases, yeah, you're going to get a person who is truly evil, and their desire and their goals and efforts are to hurt you. I don't think that's the vast majority of our world. I just don't think that that's the case. And those who feel differently, I don't know. So I'm just thinking that most of those negative feelings that we have, those discomforts around politics, those discomforts around religious discussions, or flat earthers, or whether you're a Christian or a Muslim, or you're a Buddhist or you're an atheist, these are all just concepts that fly around all the time. And 5D just means be open to it all. Let it all exist. Allow every thought concept and every idea that's presented come into my space. And the fastest progress that you can make in growth is when I feel what's going on in my stomach and creating the negatives. That's the area that I can grow, because the negative is the most energy, right? We don't like the negative energy because it makes us feel uncomfortable. But if you can feed off that negative energy, so, you talk about sports. You're nervous when you get up to the plate because you got this real fast pitcher, right? So what I would tell my kids was, look, when you're standing up there and you're nervous, that's energy. That's powerful energy that's inside of you. So rather than let that diminish you, you grab hold of that and you wrap yourself in that energy. And you repurpose this energy. This is called spiritual alchemy. You repurpose that energy into focus, into saying, I'm not afraid. While the fear is there, you've now wrapped it into something different, and I am going to repurpose this energy into hitting that ball. That is working on yourself. That's spiritual work. That's the spiritual quest. Anything that you feel in a negative way about anything, about any politics, about any person, about any idea, about any concept that exists, that's a problem inside of you. It's not a problem with the world outside of you. The world outside of you will reflect what's going on the inside of you. And to me, that's spiritual quest, and that's also explaining 5D. So 3D is I'm right and you're wrong. And let me talk to all my friends who agree with me, and I'll get all my friends to agree with me, and we'll all disagree with you, and all your friends disagree, and we'll have arguments and debates, and we'll push back and forth until we figure out who's right. Who's right? Everything is right, or everything is wrong. Everything is this, everything is that, everything is, right? And once you come to that realization, I call that 5D perception. It's like, okay, everything is there, everything is on the table, everything is moving. So now, can we just get all of us who see that, to think, how could we do things better? And let me just present one idea. We talked last week about voting. And I don't know, what it'll be. Let's talk about money systems. Let's talk about the healthcare system. I mean, there's so much that we could actually think about and talk about to solve problems if we're not still in the process of demonizing something as bad. Oh, that's socialism. Oh, that's capitalism. Okay. Those are just broad terms that are spiritual entities that don't mean anything. They have a negative context to you or a positive context to you. You know what I mean? And that's just an internal thing. 5D is looking at it all, and let's have a conversation about how we can potentially fix something. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We went pretty deep into this last week. I'm just kind of, obviously you're a very thinking type person, and this is something that you've thought a lot about. It's somewhat new to me. I kind of go back in time and kind of think, have we ever, as a society, been close to a 5D mindset? So I immediately go back to the 60s. I was a sophomore in high school in 1969, so I kind of consider myself as a 60s guy, and everything was peace, love, everybody accepted everybody, except the young people didn't accept the establishment. They protested the establishment and protested. Of course, the Vietnam War was going on, and there was a lot to protest, but I'm trying to think of a utopian time in history where this might have been, and I can't think of it. I can't think, go back. I'm kind of a student of the Roman history, and I love some of the sayings of Marcus Aurelius. His observations are wonderful, but I can't think of a time we've ever done this. So has there ever been a recognition of this 5D interaction of humans in a mass sense? Certainly not a global sense. Is there a society? And how do we, because what you're saying and what we've talked about and what I've read, and the book Spiritual Quest is an amazing book. Is that online, by the way? I read all my books online.
Yeah, you can get it on Kindle. You can go to the-spiritual-quest.com. That's my blog. It's got articles dating back to 10 years. And in there you can get like the first 5 chapters. You can read it, and if it's something that flows with you and you like it, get a book. And if not, there's also an audio, so you can listen to it while you follow along. And you can kind of look into some of those ideas. And I appreciate you promoting my book. And those who have an interest, by all means, do that. But back to the question, 5D is a new perception. Like it's just describing a new way to see the world. We're just starting to realize that the world has been growing around us, and because each person is growing their own thing. And technology has now reached a point where the technology is going to put us in cages. The technology is going to imprison us. And you talked about that, that 84 movie. Humanity, in my opinion, is a creation of God. And God is an intelligence. God is an energy. God is love. God is balance. God is God is the holistic outpouring of our reality, and it's under a divine love, a divine consciousness, a divine energy that brings together these dueling energies of masculine and feminine. We talked about the yin and the yang, but that ultimately it's all good, that everything works out for our good, and we manifest better and better. And so many people, if they could have actually looked into the future and they said, wow, back in the 20s when there was the depression, you say, you know what, in 2020 every person is going to have a cell phone, every person is going to have running water, everyone's going to have heat in their house, everyone's going to have plumbing, everyone's going to be driving around in their own automobiles, everyone's going to have access to hospitals because they'll be everywhere. And they would have said, oh my God, that will be utopia, that will be perfect, won't it? And oh, by the way, everyone will have access to education, so you won't have to go to school. You'll have this little device which will have every answer to you, and you'll be able to ask the device what you need to go. We're going to call that device God or Google. And you can ask it, and it will tell you, right? And And all of that would have looked amazing to the people at that point. Looking forward, they would have seen that as the utopian dream, right? Well, now we've manifested all those things, and that was the movie of '84. Now you're starting to realize that, wow, all of these so-called advancements that we've made are also potential traps that can hurt us, that can cause us conflict. So we have to move beyond that. How do we move beyond that? It's going to take the conscious thoughts of all humanity. Because until all humanity kind of comes to this realization that we need to repurpose technology, we need to repurpose money, we need to repurpose the way things are run, otherwise, I think we're headed for catastrophe. And obviously that's on the table. And the 5D perception is the discomfort and all of this fighting and all of this fear and all of this stuff that's happening. It's happening because we are evolving, and we are reaching the point where these darknesses and these fears that we've all been holding on to and our arguments against the others, we're just too tired to fight anymore. So, you think, I don't want you to, because they're still in fear. But eventually they're just going to say, I don't want to really listen to that, so I'm just going to listen. But you know what? All of a sudden, you relax a little bit and you actually start listening to somebody. And all of a sudden you start to hear things a little bit differently. Well, I never really thought about it that way, because there wasn't room to think about it that way. But instead, all of a sudden, all of us, we just come to this new level of consciousness. Call it 5D consciousness, call it enlightenment, call it whatever you want to call it. Spiritual acuity, this is the spiritual quest stuff. That once we as a collective come to that, we're going to be able to move things in a much faster way towards solving problems. And we're going to have an amazing new era, right? But then I'm sure we're going to replay the dramas of the yin and the yang, and we're going to get back into conflict, and we'll manifest another conflict, and we're living just through another chapter in the history of humankind, and we're living in this chapter, and our names and our podcast may exist in some record that we can look back at when we recycle back in, if we ever do. I don't know anything about reincarnation or that type of stuff, but
pretty cool stuff, very deep stuff. I love your passion for this. I'm new to the concept, so some of the things that I wrote down, I think people would be surprised by the phrase you said, technology is going to cage us, imprison us. I think most people believe technology, the phone, the computer, the internet, has enlightened us, has expanded our mindset. How is technology going to cage us?
Okay, so first of all, you suggest that, and I'm going to call you what you suggested, a 3D perception, right? So you're saying that this is it. And I shared that, right? Mm-hmm. And the argument can go both ways. So you can say, yes, the phone gave us liberation, so that now every person has access to information, right? Only now we don't have information. We have misinformation. We have malinformation. We have propaganda information, right? So we don't trust information anymore. So everything we thought that would have been way back then, we thought that would have been the next thing. Now, as we're into this thing, and I say, we're being programmed. We are literally programmed by the device. We're programmed by the propaganda. We're programmed by the TV. I can't even talk to people. Like, literally, you try to talk to people about something, and you're out to dinner, and you can't even get them to get off their phone. Like they are literally that addicted to this drug. And the phone owns them. Their internet owns them. They can't wait to get home from work so they can put on the programming. And literally, it's called programming. You know what I mean? They channel information to you. What channeling do you want to hear? And so I was having a conversation before I transition. Do you have anything? Let me go ahead. Tell me what you think of that.
I immediately think back to the days when I had school work to do, let's say a report. And where would you go? You go to the library and you'd reference an encyclopedia. Or if you were rich, which my parents wouldn't, but we would get encyclopedia salesmen knock on our house door every day and, hey, you want to buy today's encyclopedia for $300, which is like $3,000 back then. So I think you're talking about news, which is biased, misinformation. I think this is a concept that has been around for a long time. I go back to the McCarthyism, the communists, and seeing the newspapers of communists being in every building, and there's nothing new. It's the way the information that we are getting. The news is just easier to get, and there's more sources, and there's more individually biased sources. But I think we've always been misinformed in terms of news, in terms of facts. Like, I use my phone. I'm to the point now where I'm considering, because particularly since I ran for office and I was getting all these emails and wackos and people calling me and trying to persuade me to do this, I'm thinking about going back to a flip phone. You want to reach me? Call me. If I don't want to talk to you, I'm not calling you. And I kind of am starting to run my smartphone like that. At the end of a work day, I pretty much put it away somewhere. I put it on a charger. I don't have my charger and my phone near my bed at night. I want to wean myself, and I have no problem doing that. But I think there's the factual, the ability to retrieve facts fairly quickly is a good thing for, let's just say, Googling a restaurant, or
Of course.
you've got a headache. Of course, if you go Google that, you'll conclude you have a
You need a
brain
vaccine.
tumor. Yeah, or go to your doctor and get a vaccine. But in terms of news and propaganda and bias and misinformation, I'd never ever considered that growing up. I mean, I was brought up as an era of, if an authority figure said it, it's true, you respect it, don't question it. If you do, you're going to get slapped.
So one of the things that you referenced, by the way, and I'm doing the same thing, and I recommend to everybody who has the ability to get off the devices, it's like a drug. And if you spend too much time, you will find that the drug no longer works. And then you're going to be really, really down into this dark space. The dark night of your soul is when you're forced to look inside of yourself and deal with the shit that's going on in your own belly. You can run and you can dance and you can fun and you can distract yourself and you can take drugs or you can have sex or you can do whatever it is you want to do, and you're constantly running because you're constantly running away from yourself. You're running away from this. And this is not going to fix itself. You're going to fix that by going inside of you. And when you go inside and you sort out those things and you find out what it is that makes you uncomfortable when certain things happen, that's what Jesus said the kingdom of God is. It's inside of you. Once you go inside and you fix that stuff, you're living in paradise. I live in paradise every day. My life is awesome. Everything about my life is incredible. Now, can I complain about it? Endlessly. Because I have people who complain to me who have amazing lives way better than mine. You know what I'm saying? But it's all just a perspective. But the advantage that we have being old, we can kind of attach it to something in our past.
Exactly.
These kids, they are stuck on that device, and they are so stuck that literally they're disconnected from society if they're not using it. Like, they won't actually be able to communicate with their friends and those different things. The technology itself is not necessarily the negative. The negative is that we're using that technology to maneuver things towards a selfish advantage. So I own a business and I want to get people to come to my restaurant. So I go out and I target people who live in my area and I send them a coupon. They come to my restaurant. When they leave my restaurant, I can see that they were here because I ping their phone because they're part of my instinct, or they searched Google for directions. Google sees that, and then Google says, boom, review the restaurant for us. Well, this is all the technology that's being utilized to optimize the technology to serve the restaurant or to serve Google because Google's making money, right? So everything is purposed for a capitalist gain. And that's wonderful, but that's done because all the money goes to Google, all the money goes to Facebook, all the money goes to Twitter, all the money goes to Amazon, right?
Yeah.
And and we're just kind of playing along in a little game here. Billions of humans are not even involved in money. I would say probably half the planet is literally hand to mouth, barely able to survive. I think that 5D level thinking needs to say, we need to kind of rethink things if we're going to be in God's space. And I say God, meaning my love and my soul and my heart for every human being that I know. And I feel as if I'm meeting someone, I should find a way to connect with them in a way that's positive. Either I make them feel good, they make me feel good, or if it's really negative, we just avoid conflict, But when we as a civilization say, you know what, we've got to stop this. We've got to take the power away from, we've got to take that money out of the system that just gets fed to the rich and the richer and the richest, right? Who fly around in jets and they can do whatever they want. They can eat whatever they want. And instead say, how can we actually repurpose technology to serve people? For instance, we could have a phone that diagnoses illness. So you don't have to go to a hospital. You don't have to go to the doctor. You can do a live test right here. They devices, they can already test your blood pressure and everything else, but they want to charge you for that. Well, okay, I understand them wanting to charge you it because they invented it and they're bringing it to humanity. But I think that we can reach a point where we as humanity can say, okay, let's take all the money that's in the quote unquote system and repurpose it and reallocate it so that we can take care of those who can't take care of themselves, i.e., providing them with medical treatment via a phone that can somehow be attached to satellites, so you can literally be providing medical treatments to people in the Sahara Desert, right, who may not have access to those things. That's fifth dimensional thinking, utilizing technology but taking the money out of that. So here's a question for you.
I'm ready.
We owe how many trillions of dollars in America? What's our national debt? 34 trillion, ridiculous number. Okay, here's the question. Who do we owe that money to?
Who do we owe it to? Well, we owe it, the definition of we is who? You and I? The American taxpayer? The bondholders? The treasury note people at the bottom? That's who theoretically is part of that debt. And the imbalance of trade, countries owe us money. Will it ever get paid back? When was the last time we had a balanced budget? I think it was under Clinton, wasn't it? I think so.
Newt Gingrich.
It doesn't matter.
It wasn't Clinton, it was Newt Gingrich. I'm kidding. They both pulled it off.
There was always a balanced budget agenda in a presidential election. Now they don't ever talk about it, do they? Why? Because when we need money, what do they do? They just print it. And we wonder why inflation's been going rampant and interest rates have been going up. We need money, let's print more. We need money, let's print more. Let's get rid of the $50 bill, but let's print more $100 bills so people have it. So I'm going to go back to the 5D mindset, which is an amazingly wonderful mindset. But is it practical in today's world? You can't ask a dictatorship country, you can't ask North Koreans to think like that. They'll, from what I've read and supposed defectors, they get killed. You can't. The Middle East. I mean, everybody in the Middle East is at conflict. How practical is this in an America, in a free thinking world, if we really are one? In fact, I made a mental note. I want to reread that book, 1984. But in a free thinking world, it's possible, starting with a movement, and hopefully the movement will grow. You and I have discussed the MAGA movement, and now I'm going to call it the Harris movement, which appears to be hot and cold, depending on which side of Instagram you watch. But how ever since Moses came down from the mountain with the 10 Commandments written in stone, we've had the opportunity as an intelligent race and human race to adopt good practices, good standards towards each other, but we never have. So how can we adopt how can this actually change the world? I think it's a great concept. I think it helps people one-on-one. to think the way how they are individually, and maybe that's where it needs to begin. Obviously, that is where it needs to begin. A bunch of organized free thinkers like you're a part of. But how do you get people in North Korea, Iran, and Israel, and Iraq, and all those, Afghanistan, and all those warring countries? How do you get people in Venezuela? How do you get people in North Korea? How do you get communist? Well, we don't call it communist China, but it might as well be. How do we get Russia? How does this concept become global?
Well, that's a nice, short, easy question for me. You're so good at this.
I am, aren't I? I feel like I am the
let me just solve all the problems of the world. So, by the way,
I know baseball and real estate. Other than that, everything you say is like, hey, man, that's a cool thought. Then I got to think about it, and then I try to open up, because what you say, it touches me, it hits me, it makes me think, and I think that's what our goal is in this type of a concept. One day we'll talk about parents' role in today's youth sports, or my 8-week political career.
Well, you got to get Mac or somebody to run those types of things. So anyway, answering that question, right? I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share thinking that I think that there are solutions and stuff that I've read. So there's this. Have you ever heard of the? I think it's the 100th monkey theory.
I have not.
Okay. Well, the 100th monkey theory, and I'm sure you can Google it and get way more information, because I'm sure I'm going to completely obliterate my memory of it. But in essence, there was this island where the monkeys were put on, and they put monkeys on this island to try to save them because they were moving or something along those lines. But these monkeys got in the water, and they were trying to eat nuts, and everything they went to eat, it was covered with sand, and they didn't like eating it, as you and I would not like eating an apple if it had been in the sand. So a monkey started to pick it up and wash the fruit before they ate it, the younger monkeys. And that reaches a certain point where once the 100th monkey hits this understanding, that understanding spreads throughout all monkeys on the planet. They've done this with mice. They put them inside of a maze, and they put the mice inside of the maze, and they try to figure out a way to get to the cheese and how long it takes them. And they ran this test, and all of a sudden, after 100 or so mice figured out this map, all future mice would go in and they'd go right to the cheese. Like somehow they knew at a higher degree, at a higher level, that information came to them. So the idea of 5D is that all change begins with a thought. Nothing that exists on our planet, there's not one thing that has ever existed from a glass to a book that didn't start as an idea. It starts as a concept. It starts as a spiritual entity, as a thought. And then we work as creators ourselves, because we're God's offspring, we literally work to manifest that in the 3D physical world. Our 3D physical world right now is facing massive calamities, and we're all struggling. And the vast majority of people are not conscious enough to have these discussions. There's very few of those, Elon Musks of the world, or, clear-headed thinkers that, number one, have the intelligence to think. And what happens is a lot of people who have massive intelligence, they measure their intelligence based on what they've memorized out of their book. Thank you. What they've memorized off of their internet, or what they've studied in a classroom. And whatever they've studied in the classroom, that's the fact. That's why I'm not a big fan of academics, because when you try to talk to somebody about something esoteric, they want to say, well, I'm quoting Kant. Well, where did those thoughts come from? Those thoughts came from here. Those thoughts came from my own brain. I'm thinking these thoughts. Now, some people say, oh, well, I'm channeling the great Khan from the universe 1972. I don't know. I don't know where these thoughts come from. I'm just thinking, and I'm just sharing them out loud. And I've been kind of forced by my own belly to say, this stuff has to just start coming out. And this is the fifth dimensional thinking. And there's like a lot of people who are just starting to just share their thoughts about what's happening. And once enough of us kind of reach this new level of thinking, it's going to manifest in something new. And once the energy of people, that's why when the propaganda around the vaccines, came out, once the people lock sync and they all get focused onto the same thing, the Bible says where two or more are gathered, there I am also. These energies get together and it's a powerful, powerful energy. You say, yeah, but that was evil. Well, that's an evil from half the point of view, right? And obviously we have to make our own calls. But once people reach this massive energy of thought concepts, it spreads the planet in a split second. That's what 5D is going to be doing, I'm hoping, and planning and seeing, is that, we're going to just stop the fighting because there's no fighting left in us. There's just nothing to fight for. What are we just going to do, kill each other? I think we're going to come to our senses collectively. I call that 5D thinking. There are, you said the 5D movement. Movement meaning there's energies in that direction. There's not you can sign up for the 5D training, but there are tons of movements and there's meditation movements and there's there's spiritual healings from Reiki to to massage to all kinds of stuff that I don't know anything about, but that's the future that's happening. And when it happens, it's going to unravel. It's going to spread throughout all of humanity. That's the plan. That's the thought.
And I hope so.
All right, buddy. Are we done now?
It's a good one.
I think we're done. I don't know our timelines, but I don't want to be too long-winded because I'm already too long-winded. All right, buddy.
Yeah, we'll continue these mindsets and maybe we'll have a guest or two coming up.
I hope you got one or two you can add. By the way, if you like this, please share it. Please comment. Please share it on Facebook or talk about it with your friends. Yeah. Share it, send a link on, your message or whatever. The more we can start the conversation, the more people that get involved, the more likely that these types of ideas can catch on, and that's the hope. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, my man.
Peace.
Yeah, peace out. Thank you, everybody.